So tonight was the night
Which is crazy.
that we needed to have 6 people here and we don't.
Right.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting for the city of Sierra Vista for 27 June 2019. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Rick Mueller,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rachel Gray, Councilmember William Benning,
Present.
Councilmember Gwen Calhoun,
Present?
Councilmember Sarah Pacheco, Councilmember Carolyn Umphrey,
Present.
Councilmember Christine Wolf.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Tonight, we'll start with the invocation led by the Reverend Donna Smith of the Graceful Passages for Vets, and immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Benning. Will you please rise?
Please join me in prayer. Knowing that Spirit, the essence and presence of God, is in this room, blessing each and every person. Knowing that Spirit is guiding the mayor, the city council, and each person that comes forth. Every issue that is brought forth is for the betterment of this city, for the highest power for the city of Sierra Vista. I simply say thank you, God, for each one. Thank you, God, for the mayor and each city council person. Thank you for all that comes forth, because it's for the highest and best for this city. I simply say thank you, God, and allow it to be. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, Reverend Donna Smith, and thank you, Mr. Benning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We can now move to item number 1, acceptance of the agenda. Ms. Umphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the agenda for the regular city council meeting of June 27, 2019 be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additions, deletions, corrections,
No, sir.
discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us to the city manager's report. Mr. Patuchik.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the council. A brief report tonight. The Fry North Garden project that we've been waiting for a while is finally moving forward, and the engineering and design has been awarded to the firm of EPS. They have offices in Tucson and in the Valley, and we'll be getting started with that soon, and our next step will be to get you a project schedule, so Victoria will be getting that out to you very soon, and we'll be moving forward on that. Our next work session is scheduled for July 9th at 3 p.m., and that will be in the conference room. And then a reminder that city offices will be closed on the 4th of July, and of course our large 4th of July celebration put on by the Rotary Club of Sierra Vista, the city, and Fort Huachuca will be mostly at the park, and then obviously at the ball fields for the fireworks later, and I look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patuchik. Any questions for Mr. Patuchik on his report?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the first item is a public hearing item. Item number 2, Mrs. Umphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2019-054, a Series 12 liquor license application for Ayana D. Malarchik on behalf of the Tandem Upscale Dining and Lounge be approved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Adams, may we have your report, please?
Mayor Mueller, members of council, this liquor license application before you is Series 12, which is a restaurant license application to be located in the Windermere Hotel. The notice of this public hearing was posted on the premise the required 20-plus days, and we have received no comments for or against the issuance of this liquor license. The police department has done a background of the applicant and has no objection to the item moving forward, and if approved tonight, it will be returned to the state for final action.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Any questions for Mrs. Adams on her report? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move to item number 3, Ms. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2019
2023-055 codification of Code of Ordinances and declaring a 30-day public record be approved.
It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Adams, may we have your report, please?
Mayor Mueller, members of council, this item before you is an administrative item. It is something that we are required to do by statute to codify all of the ordinances that have been passed by the Sierra Vista City Council for a certain period of time. This codification covers January 1, 2018 through May of 2019. It merely brings them in as public record and the public code of the city. It does not affect the actual ordinance itself. They went into effect in the normal course after passage. This just brings it in as a public record. And if approved tonight, we will update our books, and the website is updated as these ordinances are passed, but this is a hard copy book that we keep in our offices as part of the city government.
Any questions for Mrs. Adams on her report? Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Any further discussion? And this is a routine administrative matter. I'll just point that out. So I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 4, Mrs. Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2019-056, General Plan Amendment to Map 8, Vista 2030, Traffic Circulation Plan be approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Everybody wants to take a turn, okay. Mr. McLaughlin, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. McLaughlin, may we have your staff report, please?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as was mentioned, this item pertains to the traffic circulation plan contained in Vista 2030, where we're proposing to update the functional classification designations on map 8 to be in alignment with the more current and accurate maps prepared by the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Arizona Department of Transportation. Periodic maintenance of the traffic circulation plan is recommended under Goal 3 of the transportation circulation element of the general plan. I walked you through the specific changes at the work session on Tuesday. This slide shows the existing and proposed map, which are provided in the resolution before you. The majority of the roadway segments remain the same. The major differences between our local map and the state and regional maps involve identifying a number of collector and residential connector streets. Again, residential connector streets are essentially on par with minor collector classification defined by the state and the regional MPO. Functional classification system is the system by which roads are grouped into classes according to the type of service that they are intended to provide. The system is comprised of arterials, collectors, and local access roads. The basic premise is that there is an inverse relationship between mobility and access. As you move up the hierarchy, mobility increases while the amount of roadway access decreases to account for the higher speeds and volumes of the roadway. Arterials are the large roads designed to move traffic through and around activity centers at relatively fast, uninterrupted speeds. Driveway access is limited. Collector streets provide mobility between the higher speed roads and the low speed roads. Local roads connect travelers to the overall transportation network and make up the bulk of our roadway system. Our development code provides design access management standards for each roadway type to carry out their intended function. The Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended an in-depth review of this article as part of their upcoming work program. We'll forward any recommendations upon completion. So again, the recommended amendments to the traffic circulation plan is the result of our interdepartmental review of the MPO's long-range transportation plan and ADOT's functional classification map, and are intended to provide an increased level of consistency. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a work session and 2 public hearings on this item on June 11th and June 18th and voted 7-0 to recommend approval of the consistency changes. I have enlargements of the specific amendments that were presented at the work session if you want me to go through the particular changes with you again. And with that, I'll wait for your direction.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Any questions?
Oh, go
We'll
ahead.
start with Ms. Humphrey, please.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Planning and zoning is going to look at the standards. When is that going to happen before EPS does? I'm assuming they need to go by those standards, right, to design the downtown? Is that how it works, or?
Well, their particular interest was in the access management portion of that article, so that's where we'll start a review. And
Will it affect what they're?
it may or may not. It really, we need to basically walk them through the existing standards. There'll be an educational process and some technical explanation of how those were set, and then seek their input and any amendments that they want to recommend for your consideration at a future meeting. So
Okay.
it may stay the same. They may recommend amendments. We'll just have to go through that process.
I'm not sure I understood your question.
Because the engineering phase was awarded to EPS.
Are you talking about the project
Fry North.
specifically?
Right,
Fry-
and we're
sure.
changing that section to a different classification. There's standards tied to that, and I was wondering if that's gonna, like, what happens first? Do we
Although
change the standards and
They'll,
then?
they'll use the current standards based on what we have now, what's voted on tonight, my understanding.
And Mayor Mueller, members of the council, I think too, we're really looking at a specialized situation with regards to how Fry and North Garden will end up. And I don't necessarily think it'll fit neatly into one of these categories. So, speed limits may be slower, design may be a little different than what we would normally have on the traffic circulation plan. So if there has to be a change in terms of classification, when we get through that design phase, then we would bring that back to you.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah, and part of the public outreach process will involve conversations with the property owners to identify opportunities for consolidating access points. Again, that's going to be case by case through that process, which will factor into the ultimate design.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was curious, noticing things driving here tonight about bike lanes and parking lanes. Do these changes affect any of that? More bike lanes in the community or anything?
Well, not these changes.
Okay.
But the Planning and Zoning Commission may revisit the current cross-sections and recommend modifications to expand the width of bike lanes, for example. Right now, they're 3 feet. Perhaps they'll want to provide for additional width. I don't want to prejudge that process, so we'll just have to wait and see what direction they provide to staff to share with you at a future meeting.
I see. Okay, thank you. You wait.
Anybody else? No further discussion? Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin.
Sure.
If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now move to new business. Item number 5, Mr. Benning.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council regular meeting minutes of June 13th, 2019 be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additions, completions, corrections, discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 6. Mrs. Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the resolution 2019-057, approval of the council's strategic plan, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Yarborough, may we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So back in 2007, the makes this your 7th strategic plan up for consideration tonight. In the past couple months, staff and council has had a number of great discussions on what you wanted your plan to look like this year, or for the next 2 years. And so the version you see before you has the following changes. The last version on the Engage initiative, Goal 1 was revised to reflect your desire to improve awareness of citizen engagement and awareness of city operations. There were additionally some sub-goals added to address specific Under the Enhance initiative, Goal 1 was also revised to focus on improving efficiency and effectiveness of public safety, and some additional modifications made to other actions. And then under the Empower initiative, a second goal was added to reflect your desire to address homelessness, mental health, and affordable housing with some accompanying additional action items. And then finally, another action item added regarding encouraging residents to shop locally. So those are the changes from the last version. I'm happy to take any questions, and actually one final note is that when we're finished, we'll have handouts and slides for council to use if you wish to talk to members of the public and public groups about the strategic plan. It will also look much prettier when if it's approved and goes to Public Affairs Division to pretty up.
Thank you, Mrs. Yarborough. Questions or discussion on the strategic plan? Okay, we must be there then. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item number 7, Mr. Benning.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Resolution 2019-058, an intergovernmental agreement with Cochise County regarding funding of a consultant to promote retention and expansion of missions of the United States Army at Fort Huachuca, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Petichik, may we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the council. This item updates the existing intergovernmental agreement we have with Cochise County with regards to the hiring of a consultant to assist us in Washington, D.C. For the purposes of promoting the missions on Fort Huachuca. The original agreement was a 3-way cost share between Cochise County, the city of Sierra Vista, and the Fort Huachuca 50 in the amount of $30,000 apiece for $90,000 for the consultant. That amount has been changed as a result of renegotiations with the consultant to bring the cost down to $60,000. The cost share splits are now $27,000 for the county and the city and $6,000 for the Fort Huachuca 50. It's a 1-year agreement with 4 automatic renewals. However, if there are changes in the cost splits, we'll probably need to be bringing that back to you next year and making amendments to the agreement. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you have.
Questions for Mr. Petichik? Yes,
Does,
ma'am.
does this represent a change of the person who is the consultant?
No, Mr. Corrigan will still be
same
our
company,
consultant, yes.
And he's been doing, I'll just comment, he's been doing more than a fair job with us. He's been getting this in a timely manner to see the people we need to see, so.
It's great to hear. I have one other question then. How often or in what manner do you receive reports from the consultant about what's happening?
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Calhoun, we actually have a standing appointment at least once a month with Mr. Corrigan. That's usually handled by teleconference, and then, of course, we meet internally as well if we need to.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion?
I just want to add, and he provides that written summary how often. I only see the one in there, but I wanted to add it to the list of stuff he does.
Well, we get a report, at that teleconference every month. But if the council would like to see a written report on a periodic basis, I'm sure he would be happy to provide that for us.
Yeah,
It could be either
there's one in
monthly or
there.
quarterly, however you'd like it.
No, I'm not requesting more. I know that he submitted one recently, and I'm adding to the.
Well,
Sorry, didn't want to.
They just had their annual, the Huachuca 50 just had their annual dinner, so we got a report on what the Huachuca 50 are doing, what he was doing, and some of the stuff he did that fiscal year, or that year, excuse me. So it was nice to hear that, but excuse me. But I know he does report in, so it's good to see what the Huachuca 50 are doing and what
Hopkins County are doing.
yes, sir.
And Mr.
And Corrigan, I didn't want to mispronounce his name.
Well, then, for those of us who don't make it to that annual meeting, for whatever reason, I think it would be helpful to receive maybe the documents from that meeting, or at least maybe not quarterly, maybe every 6 months or so, some update on what's happening.
We could certainly do that.
That would be great.
And the key thing is, a lot of times, the the main subject doesn't change. It's just the status of that subject may have changed based on whether Congress has voted or who's talked to who in the Department of Defense and that kind of thing. So I'm sure it'll be helpful to everybody. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 8. Ms. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2019-059, amendment to the Comprehensive Fiscal Policy, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Felix, may we have the staff report, please?
Mayor, members of council, as many of you know, the financial situation of the public safety retirement system is deteriorated over the past few years due to less than stellar investment returns and less than maybe prudent business decisions by the board. To help solve the situation, the state legislature, in its infinite wisdom, has mandated that all cities in the state of Arizona pass a financial policy that explains how they will become fully funded in their liabilities for the system. This resolution updates the financial policy. What it does is it incorporates what the city's already doing, making the annual mandatory contribution as set forth by the state every year. And that contribution rate has about as of right now, about 10% of the contribution is the normal payment we have to make, and an additional about 40% for each is to pay off this liability. And the time frame that's established in that amortization schedule has it paid off by 2036. In addition, we will strive to continue to pay for contributions to the employees that are in the DROP program. Currently, it's not mandatory that the city contribute, but by doing that, we've already budgeted for these people. We can go ahead and help do that with minimal impact. We also strive to pay the full budgeted amount each year. For instance, we are short 6 police officers right now. We have budgeted this past year for those employment contributions, so we go ahead and pay the full budgeted amount. And also, we strive to pay the whole annual budget in the first quarter of the year. A couple of years back, when Paradise Valley was started doing it, they estimated they'd get an extra $50,000 a year in returns on the item. The current funding ratio for the police department is 38%. The current funding ratio for the fire department is 46%. And to give a perspective on how much of the deterioration that has happened in the last 17 years, in the late 90s, the fire department was funded at 175%. We made the minimum 2% contribution each year, and right now we're making a 48% contribution for them. So that's a lot of the budgets that's being taken up to be spent by that. The actual shortfall in dollars, the police department has a $26.9 million net pension liability, and the fire department has a $15.9 million net pension liability. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would you go over again the wisdom of the paying it off, paying the annual amount the first quarter of the year?
As I said, if you can, assuming it's a normal growing market, if we can put the whole thing in the beginning of the year, we should get additional interest revenues on the funds that are invested.
Okay. Thank you.
No, sir.
And for those of you on council that may not have been around while this was going on, I will share with you that the funds were heavily invested in the housing market back before the housing market broke, and then they decided high tech was the next best thing, and they went into high tech, and high tech blew it, market blew it. So those are the two big indicators, and the challenge I have with the system the way it's set up, and the arguments I've had at both League of Cities and Towns and with our legislators, is that the cities who are paying the bill and us folks up here that are supposed to be the guardians of the public purse have very little input in the way this system operates, and that's got to be a change to the system. And it's improved with the new board and the new board composition that they put in the reforms, but I will tell you that they haven't gone far enough, and I'll continue to work on at the League of Cities and with our legislators to try to get them to come to some sense of reality, because I don't think we're were there at the state level. I don't think they really understand what's going on and why they have the issues that they have and why we're in the situation we're in. So, with that, any other comments, discussions? Need nothing more from Mr. Felix. Thank you, Mr. Felix. Appreciate it. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now go on to call to the public. We have one member of the public that would like to speak with us tonight, Mr. DiCarlo, and you know the rules, so I'm not going to bore you with them.
Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, citizens of Sierra Vista. My name is Michael DiCarlo. I've been a resident here since '02, full-time since I retired from the Navy in '08. I want to thank each of you that are on the council I really believe that each of you is a good person. You're trying to do a really good job, and you're trying to represent the people the best you can. I would like to thank the members of the staff also. I believe that most of you are really good people, and you're stuck in a really bad system. But you try to do every day your best professionally to enable the city to grow. With that being said, Parks, I'd like to thank you very much for the greenery and the grass, the ball fields that look beautiful. One thing I want to be concerned with is the drainage for the water fountain that we have over at it's Len Roberts Park on 7th Street, or on Theater. The drainage for it, somebody's going to cry foul about we're wasting water. Those kids are having fun in it. That stuff can drain into the trees, or it can drain into the grass, and that stuff can go away. Matt, thanks for cutting it down from 20% down to about 5 or 6% for the CBDG grant oversight stuff. Mission should be 0, like we talked about coming in, but I'd like to thank you for the efforts that you've done in order to minimize the amount that the city's taken for the stuff that can be invested out in the public. One thing I'd like to recommend would be for the transit folks, that the bus stop that's on 7th Street by the 99-cent store that closed, 7th and Fry, that corner there, that is in no way, any way, shape or form ADA compliant at all. There's no way around that at all. But if we could get that addressed and focused on that, so that we can have results or only a work environment. The critique I would have on the management, and Mr. Mayor, thanks for bringing up the 90s. A light bulb clicked on my head. Until the late and mid-90s, working for government was considered a privilege. Part of that privilege was that you took a pay cut in order to make sure that you always had a job. But the benefit was you had a pension coming to you on the back end at a very short period of time. In the 90s, we raised we raised the burden that we paid our city employees. And that is coming back to bite us in the butt. Can bring that in with the Stone Garden program, where it pays for everything but the pensions. We're able to employ people that, if it wasn't for those grants, we couldn't afford. And now we can't afford the pensions. The pensions in fiscal year 2016 were at 24.3 million for the police, and now they're 26.9. They're growing. The fire was 14.5, and then now it's 15.9. It's growing, but not as rapid percent. But that's because the Stone Garden program didn't add firemen to the equation. It only added to the enforcement of law instead of the maintaining of peace. There's two different aspects there. If we talk for a moment about the energy plan that we have with the Snyder Electric project, that thing is shiny, it is beautiful, it has a great vision, it does. But with the amount of burden that we have with these pensions, and if you take into consideration that the city of Sierra Vista is approximately 47, somewhere around that percent of the county, with that $33 million we have coming from the sheriff's department as a burden, we're going to be hit with that as well. I know that we're two distinct bodies in the corporate sense, but the people you represent are going to be hit twice in this area. So you can either raise taxes or you can cut government. I know it's going to be unpopular at both ends. I can guarantee you that taxes being raised is not popular at all, and cutting people's jobs isn't going to be popular at all. Perhaps maybe we should bring back the amount of compensation if we don't want to lay people off. But there's no way out of this. This is the USS Arizona in Sierra Vista. This is a sinking ship, and we're taking on water and debt that we're never going to be able to pay back. The energy plan, it's shiny, it's beautiful, it's got a great vision, but we've manipulated through legalese the financing for it. As the last council meeting, we noticed that being legal does not by any means mean ethical, and does not by any means mean moral. We have taken money through taxes that are tied to people's homes through franchise fees, put those franchise fees in the sales tax column, and counter that as economic growth. These franchise fees are your gas bill, your cable bill, your water bill, all those things that go with having a home. By manipulating it this way, you are bypassing the Constitution of Arizona, Article 7, Section 13. That requires, if you're going to place the citizens in financial bondage, that is put before us as a vote. By manipulating the system this way, you're placing people in chains, both on their hands and their wallets and their work and their effort, and also on their wallets. Going back and combining all this together, this is a massive debt project. I'm not sure that would be best interest for the citizens of the city, though it will look beautiful and new. I thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for your time, members of council, and members of staff. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. DiCarlo. We'll now move to comments and requests to council. Tonight, we'll start with Mrs. Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to wish everyone a happy and safe 4th of July celebration and recognition of the importance of that day.
Thank you, Mrs. Calhoun. Mr. Benning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to repeat what Ms. Calhoun said. Happy 4th of July. The festivities are going to be amazing again this year, so Veterans Park all day. And Domingo de Paya is, 7:30? The fireworks should start, so hope to see everybody out there, and thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Benning. Ms. Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. I'll see you guys at the celebrations. Actually, I'll be there really early because I never miss the Pets and People Promenade. You guys, if you know me, you know that I'm there every year. So I'll be there bright and early at 7 a.m. at Ramada 3 at Veterans Memorial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also echo everyone's comments on the 4th of July. I would add, please be very safe with the fireworks. As somebody who's actually afraid of fireworks, please do not make our fire department come out more than they have to. I'm laughing, but I'm seriously not joking. I really am afraid of fireworks. And also, if you guys want to, Power the Verses tonight at the new U-Haul or the old Kmart from now until 7:30. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I, too, want to wish everybody a happy 4th, but before we do that, 6:30 tonight, the community band is playing in the park. It may be a little warm out there, but as the sun goes down, it chills off a little bit. And they're a great group, and the price is right since it's free. 4th of July is on Thursday, and that probably is going to lead into a long weekend, so I'd ask everybody to please be safe on the roads and any traveling. I will also remind you that there are fireworks ordinances in the city of Sierra Vista, so I hope before you go shoot off your fingers or your fireworks, whichever comes first, that you check those to make sure you're doing that in a safe manner. It's already been mentioned that on the 3rd, it hasn't been mentioned on the 3rd that we have a talent show and a band playing in the evening of the 3rd as a kickoff for the 4th of July, which has a Pets and People parade early in the morning. The celebration starts at 11:30 for what's called the noon ceremony and salute to the Union and the flyover, and of course fireworks at the ball fields in the evening at dark. So please be careful, enjoy your 4th, do an appropriate celebration, and we thank you for tuning in and paying attention tonight.
Yes, sir.
Seeing nothing else before the council, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.